You're listening to WJHS 91.5 The Eagle. Welcome to Media in the Making, a podcast where we look at the evolution of media from 1600 all the way to present day 2022.
In this podcast series, we ask, how have different forms of media evolved and changed culture? Media in the Making, where media and culture are always changing. Now, let's take a step back in time.
It's not uncommon to come home after a long day of school, grab a snack, and sit down to your favorite hobby. For most, this may be video games. In today's world, home consoles are flashy, high-tech, and have high-definition screens with vivid imagery. But home consoles haven't always been this complex like the ones we know today.
Imagine it's 1972, bell-bottoms and afros are all the rage, and the first successful arcade cabinet by Atari just came out. This arcade cabinet was Pong, a popular game that everyone has played at some point in their gaming career. Arcades were most popular during the late 70s to the mid-80s. Many other arcade games became popular during this time, such as Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Street Fighters.
Going to an arcade with your friends was especially popular. Visiting an arcade was the only way to have access to these cabinets. So video games were a novelty, versus being accessible by all from their homes. That being said, things began to change in 1977 when Atari now released the first video computer system, or VCS. This was the first home console available to consumers. The Atari VCS was much smaller and sleeker in comparison to the bulky arcade cabinet. The Atari VCS was sold for $199, which is roughly $850 in 2020.
The first game ever sold commercially for Atari was Computer Space, which was the company's main attraction. Later on, the infamous Pong became available in cartridge form as well. In the first year on the market, upwards of 400,000 Ataris were sold. The system was easily marketed because it only required a television set, which is available in every household in America. This marked the video game boom. Everybody and their brother were trying to profit off the new market. Atari began to be overrun with cheap third-party games. So many companies were releasing quickly developed games trying to hop on the trend. Some games, like E.T., were only given 6 weeks to be developed, packaged, and marketed. The game was so bad, nobody bought it, and it was even mocked by The Simpsons.
More and more third-party games were being released, and consumers were unsatisfied. Finally, in 1983, Atari met its fate and came to an end. This defeat brought the collapse of video games in the U.S. Fortunately for video game lovers, on the other side of the hemisphere, in Japan, a new video game dynasty rose.
Introducing Nintendo Entertainment System. Unlike Atari, Nintendo developed fewer high-quality games and had strict third-party rules. Similarly, the NES required a television set to operate. To avoid making the same mistakes as Atari, Nintendo created Checking Integrated Circuit, or CIC. Essentially, this prevented third-party developers from creating unauthorized games. Atari left consumers untrusting of so-said high-quality games, but Nintendo gained back this trust by marking all of their products with the official Nintendo seal. Nintendo quickly moved up ranks, making Japan the lead in the video game industry.
For years, the VCS was the only way to play video games. If you wanted to play with friends, they would have to come over and play on the attached controllers. This also limited you to the number of players that could participate. Since the creation of the internet, gameplay with friends and other users has changed. Instead of having to be in the same room to play with multiple people, you could play from different houses, states, or even countries. Also, with online options, many gamers can play together at once.
From the 70s through the 80s, all the way up to present-day 2022, video games and video game systems have evolved tremendously. Video games started with Atari and the first arcade cabinet, then the first video computer system, and now online gaming. The ever-changing world of video games, from Atari to Nintendo, and today PlayStation and Xbox as well, continue to flourish as culture grows and adapts to the technology. The next time you come home and sit down to your favorite video game, think about how it all started with one system, the Atari. Media in the Making, brought to you by WJHS 91.5 and the Eagle Tech Academy Mass Media classes. Media in the Making, teaching you about the evolution of media throughout history and its effects on culture.
For more from the students, this podcast series is on the 91.5 website, wjhs915.org. Thank you for joining us.